Ani, hello. My name is Marnie Anderson. I'm from Wanapate First Nation, and I've been working for the ACHWM team since 2016. I'm going to be presenting to you ACHWM Training, Part 1, The Journey to the ACHWM. In this training, I'm going to be talking a little bit about the introduction to the ACHWM, the history, ACHWM today, and the Balance app. What is ACHWM? ACHWM stands for Anishinaabe, the Children's Health and Wellbeing Measure. It's a 62-item health and well-being assessment that is used with children between 8 and 18 years old. It was developed with and for Indigenous children across Canada, and the ACHWM process connects children at potential risk to local services. I'm going to go into a little bit about how that journey happened of creating the ACHWM. And just to give you a sense of where that happened, the origin of the ACHWM happened between Mary Jo Wabano at Wacomican Unceded Territory and Nancy Young at Laurentian University. Mary Jo is located within Wacomican, and you can see it there in the red box at the end of Manitoulin Island, and Nancy Young is located at Laurentian University here in Sudbury. And so what initiated it is that there was no child and health data to inform health planning and evaluation at the community level. Mary Jo was looking for something that could help her evaluate and understand what types of programs she should be bringing in at the community level. There was a need for a new measure to provide local data from the perspectives of children and to guide local health planning and delivery. A partnership was developed with Dr. Nancy Young at Laurentian University to enhance the scientific credibility of this measure. So we didn't just want to make a survey, we wanted to make sure it was credible across the country. The intent was to ensure the relevance for Indigenous children in Canada. And how that started was in 2011 and 2012, they started with a photo voice activity where they invited youth in the community to participate in focus groups and take photos in the community of what health and well-being meant to them. All of these ideas and all of these photos were translated into questions about balance, where the kids took a photo about balance on the teeter-totter and they felt that it was very important, as well as language is another example. This photo is really interesting because when they brought that photo in, originally the adults who were putting the focus group together thought it was a physical activity photo. Okay, you took it because this is the baseball park, this is the Thunderbird Park in your community, and you must have took it because physical activity. And what happened was the youth that had taken it was like, no, actually, I took this photo because the sign is in our language, and the language is really important to our health. And so that's really highlighted the importance of us capturing youth feedback to determine what they see health as and how they see it within their community. So 38 children in Wacomican selected the best questions that each of those photos represented and assigned them to particular quadrants. Whether that be physical, mental, spiritual, or emotional, every question was assigned to a particular area. They developed the first 58 questions related to health and wellness, and it was developed on paper. So it was really good on paper, but what Mary Jo was finding was that, it might be a little bit difficult to try and capture all of this on paper all the time. So they looked to be able to improve that as well. All of this was guided by an advisory committee that included education, health, elders, family, and of course the children who were involved in discussing it. In 2012, the ACHWM was then refined by children. So they brought in new kids, 9 kids and 9 parent or caregivers, and conducted some interviews with them to be sure that this measure is going to be relevant to other kids in the community. Does it make sense? So this is just doing a double test. We ended up noting that we needed to refine some of the questions so that they were consistently understood. This might have been a word or a phrase, but after this, we have achieved a version that was very relevant in Wacomican and was understood by the kids in that community very consistently. But they didn't just want to stop there. They wanted to see how well this measure could fit in other communities, because the goal was to be able to share it once they created it. And so in 2014 and 2015, they assessed the fit of the ACHWM in other communities. This included with ACHWM Family Services, Métis Community in Sudbury, Chiging First Nation, Whitefish River First Nation, and the Ottawa Inuit Children's Center, now known as Inugatagit. And these agencies and communities really helped us make sure the ACHWM was going to be relevant to kids beyond the Wakamekong community. And it was really important that we got a diverse perspective to make sure that we weren't missing key parts to make sure that this survey was relevant to them and they understood it the same. So we ended up developing some different versions. The ACHWM team recognized the importance of the language and language revitalization within Indigenous communities, and this is why we're continuously striving to expand on the languages that we have accessible within our survey. So the survey could look a little different within each of the language options due to the varying realities, regions, and aspects of culture across different nations and communities. Focus groups and language speakers were consulted in the process of implementing these languages within the survey. And in the next slide, I'm going to show you some of these differences. So here's a summary of our language versions. We have two distinct versions. One is a standard and one is a family and child services. Each of those have French and English, and then subset from that, they have First Nation, Métis, and Inuit examples. And I'll go into those examples in the next slide. But the differences between the standard survey and the family services survey is just in the question themselves. So in the example I have below, in question 18, in the standard version, it will say, I enjoy celebrations, gatherings in my home or community. In the family services question, it will say, I enjoy celebrations, gatherings in my home or community / communities. And again, for question number 25, I feel safe with my family. And in the family services, it's I feel safe with my family / families. And this was really highlighted by the Child and Family Wellbeing Agency that was looking at the survey and trying to make sure that this was going to be relevant for their youth. And in that reality, sometimes there's more than one family or might be more than one community that the child feels connected with. And so it was really important for them to have the plural form for these questions. So just note that there's two standard and then there's family services. And next, I'm going to go into each of the languages. So we have three different language types. We have First Nation, we have Métis, and we have Inuit. And there needed to be some small, subtle changes within some of these questions because of the examples and realities, and like I said before, some of those differences that are there. So for example, in question number 16, I take time to connect, talk, pray to the Creator / God. You'll see that in the Métis and in the Inuit that it just says God. The next question, number 33, I feel connected to Mother Earth, is in the First Nations version. In the Métis, it's I feel connected to the land. And in the Inuit version, it's I feel connected to nature. Question 36, I take time to learn our native language. And the example is Michif. In Inuit, it says I take time to learn our Inuit language. And in the First Nation, I take time to learn our native language. So you can see there's some subtle differences within each of the questions themselves. And I just wanted to make one last note that the Inuit version doesn't have question 47, which is, I have access to clean drinking water. Here is a quick chart of the survey questions. There is a total of 63 questions. 62 of them are the ones that the children created. And the first question, how would you describe your health this past month, is a global health rating question, very common in quality health surveys. And then there's 3 open-ended questions at the end of the survey, but just to give you a sense of the total number. So the ACHWM achieved a stable and consistently understood version of the assessment. And one of the things that happened during creating the ACHWM is there was some questions that the kids really wanted to be a part of the survey. And we had to look at to see if we needed to make a post-survey brief assessment development. So the screening process that we have as a part of our ACHWM program was created by the Nadmadwa Mental Health Clinic staff in Wacomico. They took a look at the survey questions and they identified there's about 18 questions within the survey that should be flagged and should be noted to be followed up with following that survey. And it was really difficult because some of the questions, you know, we had to think about, should we have these questions in here? And the youth and the children that developed the survey were really adamant in that in order to understand how my friend feels, you have to ask them these questions and you need to ask them this way. And so to respect what their request was, we had to be able to follow up with some of these questions in a way to make sure that the children are still safe. So what we did is we got the mental health workers to go through the survey. They picked out those 18 questions, and then they identified if the child answered a certain way in any of those 18 questions, how do we want that to show up? And so we identified it as flags. Children are referred to a qualified staff member if one or more red flags shows up or two or more yellow flags. And I'll show you what those flags are in the next slide. And when you're referred to that qualified staff member, that triage ensures the child's safety by connecting them to the appropriate services and validating those responses that that child had made. That child could simply have made a mistake. Maybe they misclicked a button. Maybe they might have misunderstood the question because they were reading it too quickly. So it's really important that there's a triage, there's someone there to have that conversation with them, confirm, yes, this is valid. If it's not, then you're done. If it is valid, then let's look at to see what services and what support we can provide you. And here are the questions that are flagged and that the mental health workers have identified as flagged questions. So just for example, question 3, I feel afraid or scared. If the child answers always, it will come out to be a yellow flag. If the child answers always to I feel bullied, it'll come out as a yellow flag. If in question 18, the child answers always to I hurt other people when I'm upset or angry, it'll come out as a red flag. So these flags were identified by the mental health team and help the mental health team respond immediately after the survey because these are identified as soon as that survey is done. So the ACHWM today, like I said before, is a total of 62 questions. Including the global health rating question. It has 3 open-ended questions at the end. What activities would I like to do? What cultural activities do I do? And what physical activities do I do? Are just the examples. And you can see in this medicine wheel that the question themselves are separated into 24 emotional, 16 spiritual, 9 mental, and 13 physical. The survey went from a paper copy and transitioned to having it within a tablet. And this was really important for Mary Jo in the community because she felt that it addressed sustainability. So she didn't have to take the time out of her day and enter in all of that information. So there's no need for data entry. And the tablet uploads the information securely to the REDCap server or directly to the tablet. So it makes it really easy and efficient. It also addresses feasibility. So doing the survey really appealing to kids. They really enjoy doing the survey on the tablet versus on the paper. They find it's more efficient, it's a lot quicker. And there's a lot of neat features with the survey, like text-to-speech, which enables the children with maybe low literacy levels to be able to participate and still answer the questions within the survey. There's a lot of great benefits with the measure, and I can't forget to mention them. So first, the measure itself gives children a voice in their own health assessment. Oftentimes, children's health assessment comes from adults' perspective, and having the children be involved in their own health assessment and having their voice in their own health assessment is really beneficial, and thought it was really important to highlight. It was developed with Indigenous children between the ages of 8 and 18. It's culturally relevant and grounded in the medicine wheel. And with that, the grounding in the medicine wheel, it's able to develop scores related to an overall score, as well as a physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual score. And it's scientifically sound, so it's valid, reliable, and sensitive. The tablet engages children in a non-judgmental way. There's an automated process that enhances feasibility, like I mentioned before, and the tablets are quickly able to identify the urgent health needs and facilitate those new connections to local supports. And it generates quantifiable data useful at the local level to support program planning, evaluation, and funding requests. Really good in advocating for things like that. And it's really important to note that yes, the ACHWM does meet psychometric criteria. So we have done the studies around the validation, the reliability, the sensitivity, and the specificity. And these are the papers on our website that goes into detail about that. So if you're interested in reading more about how the ACHWM is created, a little bit about how we made it relevant to beyond Wakamekong, all of that can be found here, and as well can be cited. So if you're looking to write a proposal and you're wanting to use the measure, feel free to use these articles and to cite them as needed. As we started sharing the ACHWM, Wakamekong has given it a name. They call it Anishinaabe, how are you? And each community now, when we offer it to them, can select the name of what they want to call it. So how in their language, how do you say, how are you? So here are just some examples: Anishinaabe, Anishinaabe, in Métis, it's Kamasavo. And so every community has a chance to be able to name it their own and to really personalize it to how the kids would like to name it. Here in Ontario, we were able to receive a resolution from the Chiefs of Ontario, and it's really great that we got their support. And what they've done is, in 2015, the Ontario Chiefs acknowledged and accepted the Aboriginal Children's Health and Wellbeing Measure, now known as the Anishinaabe Children's Health and Wellbeing Measure. And they accept the implementation within First Nation communities and encourage the cost of implementation in each community to be responsibility. And so they really took the tool and offered their support in that, yes, this is a good tool that could be used to help evaluate children's health. One of the last things I want to talk about is the Balance app. And the Balance app was created a little after I came on board, because what was happening quite often is when we were implementing the ACHWM survey, we were often getting asked from the kids, like, what did I get? What's my score? Did I pass? Did I fail? And it was really hard to be able to answer that, because it's really not a survey about passing and failing. It's just to try and understand how well they are right now. But we understood what their curiosity was, and we were trying to understand how are we going to show them, the results in a way that would resonate with them. So we developed the Balance app in 2017, and it was a way to show children and youth survey scores in a non-judgmental way. It was a visual representation, so we put it in the form of a medicine wheel and a circle, and incorporates those 4 health concepts that are a part of our survey: spiritual, emotional, physical, and mental. Some Indigenous communities have a cultural connection to it, and so the medicine wheel itself has very particular colors in each individual community. So what we've tried to do was we tried to not necessarily have it a particular medicine wheel, but just have it a few different colors to help it relate to many communities and not just one. How to use the Balance app. Essentially, all you're doing is you're taking those scores from the ACHWM measure and you're inputting them into the Balance app. Once you put those scores and numbers in there, the circle itself will fill up relative to what the score is, and then you're able to click the balance chart name 4 times, and it will hide all the numbers so that you can just show the visual to the child and talking to them about where their strengths are and where there might be opportunities to grow. So that is it for today. I'd like to say miigwech, and if you have any other further questions, please direct any of them to achwm.team@gmail.com, or you can go to our website at achwm.ca. I hope you have a great day, and thank you for joining.